Welcome back to Blue Blood TV Podcast. I'm your host, Hassan Pinto. On this emergency show that has left the college football world in shock, and Bill Belichick leaving NFL pastures for the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. On this special episode, the Blue Bloods will dissect this earth-shattering news. What does it mean for the Tar Heels? How has Bill Belichick going to adapt himself to college football? Join us as we delve into this unprecedented event and try to predict the future of UNC football under the guidance of the Hoodie Man, Bill Belichick. Prepare for some mind-blowing speculations from Will and some groundbreaking moves in today's episode. Are you ready? Welcome, Will. We're on that episode of the Hoodie in heels. What's up, man? How you feeling today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been a big week for Carolina sports. I think before we dive in too far to the old Bill Belichick of it all, I want to give a shout out to the girls soccer team, man. They pulling in another natty for the University of National Champions. It's huge.
UNC is on a roll this weekend. Women's National Championship, and then they take over the headlines of not just college football, but sports with Bill Belichick, head coach, UNC Tar Heels. So, Will, my first question to you is, when you heard speculation that Bill Belichick could be the next coach of the University of North Carolina, what were your thoughts?
I think like a lot of folks, man, it was kind of a roller coaster of emotions for me. I think like a lot of folks that they kind of heard the news before it broke, obviously, because you and I talked about it early. I think that it was confusing. Why would we replace 70-year-old with another 70-year-old? But the more I read into the financials and looked at the deal and understood kind of the staff that he's going to build, and then you watch the press conference yesterday, and we're the welcome conference, I should say. We were on the NFL Network and FS1 and all the ESPNs and the ACC Network. The SEC Network was even talking about Carolina. The last time that Carolina was the center of anything outside of basketball, I really can't remember. So I think that it's generating a lot of buzz nationally, and I think it's going to be huge for the program. I like that. I like the hire.
So you like the hire, Will?
I do.
Okay, let's look at the bigger picture. How do you think this move will impact the landscape of college football and basketball?
I think it's going to change things, man. I mean, we've talked on other episodes of the pod about programs hiring general managers, and if you look at Stanford hiring Andrew Luck as their general manager, and these general managers need to be guys with NFL experience, I think, and bringing in a guy like Michael Lombardi, who's a 30-plus year NFL exec and has run scout teams and all that. I think this sport is becoming more, in college athletics in general, and becoming more of an amateur or more of a minor league system for the pros. So I think that if you're going to compete with the Alabamas of it all, Georgias, Ohio States, you've got to be able to treat it like an NFL program. And I think these guys are going to do just that.
So if you reflect back on previous pods that we've had, and maybe I'm a soothsayer, maybe I'm a predictor of the future, but my prediction in pods at the beginning of the year and last year were, I felt like this was going to go the route of a professional athletics with a general manager, with a head coach, with recruiters, because the old idea of a college coach, he's the recruiter, he's the coach. It's just too much in today's landscape of the portal, tracking players, and I just thought that college football and basketball, for that, needed to get more scientific. They needed to have different roles set, and I think this deal with Bill Belichick, whether it works or it doesn't work, is the blueprint for college sports going forward. Not only did Bill Belichick bring Bill Belichick, but he brought the Patriots general manager. He's
Yep.
bringing pretty much his entire professional staff. And then from what I understand is the folks that are on Mac Brown's staff that are good recruiters will be in the recruitment office, which will be away from football, and their job would be just to recruit. I mean, is that what you heard,
Yep.
Will?
That's kind of what I've heard as well. We've got a friend of the family who was on the staff, Manny Miles, and he kind of kept the whole thing close to his close to the vest or the chest or whatever the old adage is. Um, but he said he was happy with the hire, and it's I think a lot of if these football minds are happy with it, I think we should be as well. The one thing I love about it is that the money, the financial of it all. I mean, yeah, we're gonna treat it like an NFL program. We're gonna have a system of scouts and everything. Um, but we went from having $4 million in NIL money to close to 20, I think, and that's just in the revenue sharing aspect of it all. So that puts us as a program top 6 or 7 in the country as far as NIL deals. And if we've got Peppers walking around who said he wants to be a part of it all as well, and Jordan's there, and all the history of Carolina and the money that we've got and everything, I don't see why we couldn't compete for conference championships and all that good stuff.
Well, that's what Bill Belichick said. In 1996, there's a story that Bill Belichick was here looking at Mac Brown's players, and he brought his GM with him, and they were looking at the drafting players. They stayed at the Carolina Inn, and they went for a run around campus. And the story says they get around Boshamer baseball field area, and Bill Belichick looks at his Patriots GM and says, why can't they win a national championship right here? And it was personal because Bill knew that his father
Yeah.
had coached at UNC years ago. He grew up for a few years in this majestic town. So I think, him choosing UNC was not just UNC was a job that was going to be open, but there was some relevance. And
Yeah.
the idea that he's going to have his son be the coach of UNC. So then it becomes grandfather, father, son were all coaches at UNC, which from a legacy perspective sounds pretty incredible. So, Will,
Yeah.
your next question is, okay, he's here. Great. It's good. Carolina for 24 hours, 48 hours, took over
Mm-hmm.
the entire sports scene in America, which was phenomenal. Okay.
Yep.
Carolina's on the map, but what are your predictions for Bill Belichick's success at the collegiate level?
I think the first year is going to be interesting. I don't think we should set our expectations overly high. I think you fall victim to your own hubris or whatever. But I think that he's going to be successful. I think that this program, it's a 5-year project, right? So, yeah, we're offloading a bunch of money into the program, and the Bill Belichick of it all. I just read this morning that the number one quarterback for 2026 is just set up a look to come check out Chapel Hill. So I think that 2 years down the line, I think this thing will be wildly successful. I think next year we're going to win 8 games, and we just have to be patient with the whole thing. But 8 games is better than 6-6 the last 2 years. And I think as we see this thing unfold, I think we're gonna generate a lot
So,
of buzz
Will,
as far as
where
recruits
do you
go.
get 8 games? Like, where does this number come from? Like, is this something you're just pulling out of your head, or like where?
I think so. I think so. I'm a Carolina football fan, Hassan. I've learned to not get my hopes up about anything, right? Like we've had years we started in the top 15 and we end up falling out after week 2. Like it's not like I've learned not to get my hopes up. Um, but I mean, I do think that with this hire, there are reasons to be hopeful, and when you start 6-6. We've got a bunch of guys that just entered the portal. We have two offensive linemen who entered the portal and then pulled out as soon as Belichick was hired. So I mean, hopefully we can start bringing guys in. I want to see them assemble this staff pretty quickly so that we can start filling these gaps that we need to fill, because I feel like we're going to lose Amari and Hampton, who's the leading rusher in the conference. We're losing Kobe Paysor, who was one of our best wide receivers. We're losing some other guys, but I think 8 games is completely doable, especially with the amount of talent that he's going to be able to bring into Chapel Hill.
Okay, well, I think a national championship with that type of money, I think $20 million in NIL, $30 million to Bill Belichick and his staff. I think when you talk numbers like that, a national championship or bowl championship series where you're fighting for a national championship, I think that's the bar. Now, can he get there next year? That's going to be the question. To me, the key for Bill Belichick is the portal, right? The question is,
absolutely,
does his personality, does his experience, is his ability to create, to basically make a phone call and talk to NFL GMs that he may have the best quarterback in the country, the best running back, the best wideout, the best offensive line guys. Is the respect that he gets in the NFL going to be enough for a young kid to say, I'm going to choose UNC over Deion Sanders?
I think
over Clemson and Dabo, right? Like, that's the question. And then here's the second part, Will.
Yep.
In the 400-page manifesto that Bill Belichick delivered to Bubba Cunningham's desk, rumor has it that he's been studying college football. And his opinion is 95% of college football teams are not well coached. They're not well coached. And coaches are winning because they have the best athletes, right? So they throw a pass into the corner, and Michigan now has that 6'5" guy that can jump a 40, and he ends up getting to the ball because Michigan's athletes are better, right? And he believed that in college football, you could win 30% more with coaching alone. So he believed that a team that is 2-10, right? 2-10 could be 6-6. He believes that a team that's 6-6 could be 9-3. He believes that a team that's in the 9s could go to 12 or 13-9. Okay, with coaching, because he didn't believe that most college football coaches were good coaches. And another thing you'll see is like Trevor Lawrence, right? We made a big deal about Trevor Lawrence in college at Clemson. The question that you have to ask yourself, was Trevor Lawrence that good, or were his receivers that good? What are your thoughts on that, Will?
I mean, as far as Trevor Lawrence goes, his receivers were absolute studs. I mean, that's studs, right? But with the way that college football and the landscape looks with the portal and NIL, gone are the days of Alabama's, Ohio State's, and Clemson's being able to just stockpile 5 running backs or receivers or whoever. I mean, if you look, Mac Jones, Tua, and I can't remember the third one, but they were all on the same quarterback staff at Alabama. 3 NFL quarterbacks. I mean, regardless of how well they did in college, they were throwing to guys who were studs. They were handing the ball off to the Josh Jacobs of the world. And they had five of those guys. So I think that now with NIL, you can like, there's no reason Carolina can't compete anymore. And if you're a college recruit, I don't think it necessarily goes or comes down to the living room visits with the family anymore. I think it comes down to, do you want to come play under an NFL staff, with an NFL training staff, with NFL scouts, and the guy's got connections with the entire league, right? So now we can bring in these 5-star, 4-star recruits that we weren't necessarily getting before, these in-state guys and stuff like that, who can come here, make a little bit of money, and just pad their resume, right? So $20 million is a lot of money.
But so Carolina arms up, right? It would be like the United States adds to its nuclear arsenal. Is Russia going to sit back and say, okay, well, we've got enough nuclear missiles. They're going to put more nuclear missiles in their stockpile, right? If we arm up. So what Bubba did was he basically sent a missile across, a warning shot that he's ready to fight for it. Okay. Yeah. And this comes down to money. Okay.
It does.
It comes down to it. And how much will Carolina alumni, or how much are they willing to spend to win? Right now, Duke in basketball is getting every recruit. They're not going there for John Shire. They're going there for the money. The number one basketball recruit
just went to BYU, right?
Went to BYU because they gave him $7 million. That's
absurd.
It's not absurd. They want to win, right? So,
well, I get it. So the big thing for me is I think that the strategy is going to be to, obviously you want the 5 stars, the 4 stars, right? Like basketball and football operate a little bit differently. One guy can change a program, or at least elevate a program. I think that $7 million to a kid who's never played a collegiate basketball game in his entire life is insane. I think the important thing about Belichick, I just read an article this morning. I can't remember the kid's name, out of Florida. He was a middle linebacker. He asked for 45 grand a week, more playing time, more third down snaps, yada, yada, yada. And they said no. So he hit the portal. I think Belichick's value comes, not only with his NFL background and his pedigree and everything like that, but I think Belichick's real value comes from his ability to manage these egos. And we're going to have to cough up some money to bring in these guys. I don't think you'll see Carolina drop $7 million for one player. 20 million is a third
I think in basketball, you're going to have to. Right,
because you might get to the point where you have to in basketball. You're probably right.
You might get in a point where you have to do it, right? Because if the top 5 recruits, I say, okay, if I want to create the Fab 5, it's $35 million a season. Okay, that's my budget, right? And I can maybe I bring in one extra guy, right, on half of that, right? So if I want to create the Fab 5, like we had in college basketball in Michigan, the cost is a salary cap of $35 million.
Yeah.
Okay? And then go ahead.
I think with this, I think if Hubert already hasn't sat down with Bubba and demanded more money, he's doing it wrong. Okay. I think if our boosters in our board of trustees can just magically make $16 million appear overnight, for a guy like Bill Belichick, why can't Carolina basketball compete with everybody given the history and the pedigree and everything that we've got?
But here's the problem. And this is what I love about this NCAA thing. I think there's no salary cap. This is the freaking Wild West. Like there's no limit to what you can spend. So this reminds me of European soccer, where owners and organizations spend. In European soccer, big clubs, they buy championships, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look at Man City.
You've got to have good coaching. You got to have respect for your coach. Your coach has got to have good schemes, but he can't do it without the budget, right? So the question is going to be is, how much do you want it? How much does Carolina Nation want it? How much does Alabama want it, right? So I think not only does this deal send shockwaves through college sports, I think it sends shockwaves through every college sport. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
If I'm the athletic director for High Point University, okay, a school that is known to have a very high tuition and lots of millionaires and billionaires that kids go there, right?
Yep.
And I deem there's no way I can win in college basketball or college football. But if I'm the athletic director, I'm going to say, yeah, look, those two sports we can't win in. We can't create a name.
Yep.
But if I want to win at women's soccer, I can buy a whole team of women's soccer players and buy a good coach. And then now High Point, Elon are now on the top of collegiate soccer, right?
Yeah.
Because with an arms race without a salary cap, UNC is not going to be able to fund everything.
That's true.
Schools, small schools, can decide what they want to be great at. So I think what you're going to see is not only does this change the landscape of college football, this changes the landscape of college sports. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's just talk about Belichick's coaching style, adaptations.
Okay.
How do you see Belichick adapting his NFL coaching style to a college? And will he remain that strict discipline? And what will he do to adjust his approach? I've got a thought on this, but you tell me.
I'm curious. I haven't really thought much time or spent much time thinking about this aspect of it all. I did like his answers, and obviously in a press conference you can say whatever the hell you want. It all sounds great when you've got all the students and the boosters and the media cheering for everything, every word you say and everything. But there were a couple of comments he made about the student athlete, and I liked that aspect of it. I do think that it's going to be an adjustment period for a lot of these college kids because, like that kid from Florida who had an ego, and the kid from UNLV who left because he didn't get his money and they still end up going to their conference championship. I think that Belichick has a way of handling these egos. And I think that I think some of these kids are going to get left behind who try to play chicken with him, so to speak, or call his bluff when he drops the hammer down on them from a discipline standpoint and everything. I think that they're going to tighten up the program. And I love the idea of an NFL style offense. He's a defensive minded coach. So I mean, that's been our weakness. Watching Carolina games, we let James Madison drop 70 on us this season. So couldn't make a tackle. I think that a lot of things are going to tighten up. And I'm excited to see he's known for his in-game adjustments as well, which is something that we really haven't done or had in the last few years. So yeah, this answer's all over the place to the question, but I think I'm excited for him, man. I am.
Duke Carolina fans, download Duke Carolina, the Blue Blood Rivalry film on iTunes or Apple TV or wherever you get your VOD downloads.
Hey, Queen. Queen, you know you my guy, right? I'm always pulling for you. Tonight, when you step on the court, I step on the court too. And we in it.
Only 2 games that matter. It's the North Carolina game at Duke and the Duke game that's at North Carolina.
When we wake up on game day, there's a knot in my stomach. We've been up since 6 a.m. this morning watching recorded Duke Carolina games.
I watched the Rivers shot
about 15 times.
Yeah.
Rivers on his own. Yes, at the buzzer.
We're here for the Duke game.
And it is 10 hours and 9 minutes till game time.
The Blue Devils win 85-84.
Nothing better than North Carolina and Duke. It is the best rivalry in all of college basketball. Hall of Fame coaches, great players, and usually so much at stake.
And that's it.
The fans have as much to do with the rivalry being great as the players and the coaches.
5 hours before game time.
Well, there's no question that the rivalry is there every day in our community.
Can you imagine what it would be like around here if people didn't have it? It would be terrifying.
We are 30 minutes away from tip-off.
It's one of the most exciting events you can be a part of, and I still say it's not the biggest rivalry in college basketball. It's the biggest rivalry in all of sport, bar none.
It's game time!
Prepare for Duke and North Carolina to face off like never before. Blue Blood Rivalry 5K! 5K! Sign up one, sign up all. Students, families, alumni, locals, non-locals, everyone! And you don't even need to be from UNC or Duke, because we have a Party Crasher division. Party Crasher! Come state, Wake, UVA, anyone, and join the fun. Crash their party! But the real battle is between the Blue Devils and the Tar Heels. Before it's settled on the court, it'll be settled on the race course. But there's more. There will be a special basketball dribble division where each participant will travel the race course dribbling a basketball. Dribbling a basketball? Hell yeah! That's cool! So sign up now! Attention all racers, prepare for the event of a lifetime. The race course will most certainly decide a champion.
I am.
So here's what I think. I don't think Bill Belichick is going to be responsible for anything academically with the kids. I think they're going to have an academic staff that's their responsibility. Okay.
Yep.
I think recruiting, he's going to have recruiters. They're going to have a whole staff for recruiters. And I think Bill Belichick is simply going to coach. I think him and his staff is going to coach. His GM is going to be responsible for getting him the right players, recruiting the right players, getting in the portal, having the conversation, getting guys out to these homes to tell them why Carolina is the best choice for them. Okay. And I don't think Bill Belichick is going to have a ton of connection with his players because of the way it's going to be set up. I think it's going to be no nonsense. We're coming to work. You're coming. We're paying you. Come make your money, just like the pros. And that's going to be that, right? So
yeah,
I don't think it's going to be that complicated. Will people transfer out? Yes, because the thing that you have is you have no salary cap and 100% free agency. These kids can do whatever they want. I think the next step for college sports is, okay, I'm going to give you this $7 million for 3 years. So I'm going to guarantee you this over 21 over 3, right? So now what I think the next step is, and Will quote me here, the next step is we're going to give you now 21 over 3. And now you're making the same amount of money that you would make as a rookie first round draft pick in the NBA, and stay here and get your education.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, we kind of talked about it on a previous podcast. I don't know if it made it. It might have been one of the conversations we had after or whatever. But I love the NIL. I love the revenue sharing. I love the financial of it all. Student athletes deserve to be paid, obviously, but I do feel like, just as in European soccer, I think that there needs to be some sort of financial fair play rules that will come about eventually. But I think that the transfer portal is going to sort itself out over time once they work their way into a collective bargaining agreement, because these these athletes are going to be employees of the universities that they play for, and you're going to have to work out some sort of CBA. But then in that way, you're going to have 2 and 3 year deals, which I think will slow down the transfer portal.
It will slow down the transfer portal. It will slow down college. It will, and I've said this 25 years ago, if you let athletes make the money off their name, image, and likeness, and you pay them, you'll have less one and dones because now these kids are making money, a wage, a capitalistic wage for what they're worth. And then, it gets to the point where, well, so what if I don't go to the NBA? So what if I don't make it to pro? I'm a freaking great college athlete and I'm making tons of money here. And yeah, maybe I can make a few more mil in the pros, but I'm getting my education. I'm creating my network in terms of people my age that are going to go into the work world. And I'm going to be able to pull on those people later in life. Again, that's what college is all about. So I am totally for the way this is going, but I do think players are going to have to commit. I think for these first couple of years, it's going to be one and done. Some athletes will sign just a 1-year deal because they have no interest in actually attending school. But there will be athletes that say, hey, $2 or $3 million a year is more than enough for me to be a quarterback here at UNC, live in Chapel, and stay 3 to 4 years, right? And then I'll see my NFL dream when I see it because I want to be around my peers, right? So I think that is realistic. But those are my thoughts. But okay, so let me ask you another question. What do you think Belichick's biggest challenge is going to be?
I do think, like you said, he's gonna have very little to do with the school side, the recruiting side, this, that, and the other, and it's a very different way of doing things. It's a very new way of doing things in this era that we're being ushered into. So I think that'll be the biggest challenge. I think a lot of these kids want to be wooed, want to be, and Belichick and Lombardi have both said that they will go in. They're excited about the opportunity to recruit and go into living rooms and yada yada yada. But I do think that as we progress, as time goes on, and he's got his lineup and he's got his staff and everything, I think that you're going to see some kids that get pissed off with not having the face-to-face opportunity in their living room where they can tell their buddies that Bill Belichick sat on their mom's couch and all that good stuff. So I think that'll be one of the bigger challenges. And then just seeing how well his schemes translate to the college game, because like you said, I mean, yeah, college isn't, it's not as much coaching as it is just tossing it up to Michigan's 6'5" wide receiver, but they still have a 6'5" wide receiver and we don't. We've got small cornerbacks too. So if we do start competing, maybe by then we'll have guys who can cover a 6'5" receiver, but it'll just be interesting to see how this whole thing progresses.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions. I'm gonna just quick fire. Do you think this move will have more NFL coaches jump to college? What do you think of the pitfalls of the UNC Belichick partnership? What could go wrong? And in his first year, do you think you're going to know what's going to happen over the next 3? Because if he doesn't do well in the portal the first year and you can't see growth, what do you think happens?
I think that with the amount of money, so we'll start with that last one first. I think that with the amount of money that we gave him, fans are going to be real impatient. Carolina fans are not known for being the most patient bunch anyway. Look at Roy Williams. Fans calling for him to be fired every time he took timeouts to his grave or whatever. Like we're just not the most patient bunch of people. So with the money that we gave him, it'll be interesting to see how long of a leash the fans give him. I think we've got him for 5 years, regardless of what happens.
I thought it was a 3-year deal, Will.
I think it's a 5. I heard yesterday it's a 5. It's 5 and 50. So, but there are a bunch of incentives as well. What was the second question? First question?
The second question was, what are the potential pitfalls of Belichick being here?
I think that this is going to be a very new way of doing things in college sports. And with anything new, you're going to have some growing pains. So we'll see how quickly we can get this thing going and how well it works. The pitfalls, I don't really see many. I mean, we've never been.
I do.
I
do.
I'm trying to find major pitfalls. And I want to
see
ask
a pitfall.
you what you see. I want to ask what you see. But as a Carolina football fan, like you're a Carolina supporter through and through, and we talk to people. We tell people we're the few that are Carolina football fans, right? We haven't had a lot to celebrate. So
here's what I believe.
Okay.
A coach, a player, anybody in sport, if they've already did it, I'm never sure that when they get older, they can do it again because they've already done it. I've watched sports. I've watched men's and women's soccer. Anson Dorrance, he did it, and he had that space where he was better than everybody. And then he had a decade or more where he wasn't. Okay. Yep. I've watched Michael Tyson. He had a space where he was the best boxer on the planet. And then when he wasn't the best boxer on the planet, he was damn close, 1, 2, 3, best boxer on the planet. But he can never do what he already has done. So the potential of replacing the oldest college coach in college football with the oldest college coach in college football, that's the risk, right? Because how do you know how motivated this guy is? How do you know if his schemes from 5 or 6 years ago are relevant today? How do you know if NC State goes and hires a young offensive coordinator from the NFL that's freaking working 80 hours a week, right, on what he's doing? They set up the same thing, but they give the guy $3 million, $4 million, but he's a young, hot coach, and he's motivated. He brings in a young, hot staff that's motivated. They're working 80 hours a week. All they're doing is reviewing film and coaching the hell out of these kids, right? How do you know Belichick has the moxie to do it? I don't know.
So there was a story yesterday that floated around after that press conference, where Bill Belichick, after every week of games, while for the year he wasn't coaching, would call. He would have a group chat, a Zoom meeting or whatever it was, with all of his former staff members who weren't coaching, and they would analyze film and tape. Bill Belichick is one of those guys who's going to coach himself into the grave. He can't be without coaching. Look at Saban, right? The sport started to change. Saban got out, and he is killing it on game day with Pat McAfee and those guys, right? He loves the TV side of things. Bill Belichick never enjoyed the TV side of things. He only ever wanted to watch tape. That's why he's as dull as he is in interviews and in press conferences and everything like that. He gives quick one-word answers. He spoke for 4 minutes in a welcome to Chapel Hill press conference yesterday.
And it sounds great. Sounds great, Will.
It does.
It
But
sounds
great. I think that if you hear every week for an entire NFL season that this guy's not coaching, this guy could be hanging out with his 24-year-old girlfriend. He could be on his boat at his lake house. He could be doing whatever, and instead he's analyzing game film with his buddies who are probably going to end up on our staff. So I think that the drive is still there. It's a 5-year deal. We're not asking him to reinvent the wheel here. We're just asking him to come in. And
what happened with your UNC women's soccer team? You had a legend leave, guy that dominated the sport. He did it. He had his era, and he leaves his heir apparent, younger guy, motivated, hasn't won a national championship, with a micro fraction of the team they had the year before, where they went up 2-0 and lost 3-2 in the NCAA tournament, right? This guy, a young guy gets it. He's motivated. He's working. He's trying to figure out how to make it work. And he wins the national championship on his first shot, right? That's the risk here. The risk is you're going for a guy who's already done it, okay? Of course he's going to say, Mike Tyson said he was going to knock out Jake Paul. It's arguable if
that fight was rigged.
If that fight was rigged or not, but it's not arguable that Mike Tyson got tired, okay? Yeah. And I don't think in the later rounds he could have knocked him out. I do think in the beginning he could have. So I think the risks are, here's what I think the risks are. The risk is a lot of guys who've already done it still think they can do it. They're still living in the 90s, the early 2000s, 2015, but it's 2025, okay?
Yeah.
Okay? And Bill Belichick's girlfriend does not convince me that he has the energy to compete with a young coach, okay? So I think this is going to go two ways.
Okay.
I think they're going to be young NFL coaches that say, yo, I got a beautiful wife, got a beautiful young family. I'm 35, 40 years old. I can make the same money living in Chapel Hill, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Clemson, South Carolina, right? I can live in these great places the way I grew up, raise my family the way and I can make the same money and I can enjoy football, a real competitive form of football, and I don't have to recruit, because if the guy recruiting for me and my GM don't get it done, they're fired. They're fired, right? I think this changes college football because the Belichick story sounds good. It always sounds good. Mike Tyson sounded good. But I don't believe that you can beat youth and hunger. And I think a young guy hungry with good schemes, who's modernized and came up with a modern game, is going to see things different than a guy who's 72 years old with a 25-year-old girlfriend.
Fair enough. I do think, though, that the hunger's still got to be there, man. He wouldn't
Mike
come
Tyson
back.
is hungry.
That's totally fine. Walking around with his bare ass and his son and all the shit in the locker room, like he's totally fine. But
he even looked the part. He even looked the part in his Gucci underwear. Like he almost sold me on it, right? Michael Jordan.
Yeah, we all got bamboozled with that Tyson
Michael
Paul
Jordan,
fight for sure.
Father Time is undefeated. Michael Jordan tried
The
it.
difference between what you're talking about in this Belichick situation is that you're talking about the athletes doing it, right? If Tyson could go in and be a boxing instructor or coach and probably be fine, right? Battling a 27-year-old, 28-year-old Jake Paul in the ring is a different story. Michael Jordan being in his 40s, getting on the court with a bunch of kids that are half his age, that grew up watching him play in his prime, is completely different than being on the sidelines coaching. And the way that they're going to kind of divvy up all the responsibilities on this staff, this isn't the days of old where you had to go into 1,000 different living rooms and try to make your pitch. He can sit back.
So let me ask you a question. So just say Sean McVay gets wooed by his alma mater. He's 38 years old. He's got a 34-year-old smoking hot wife, and Bill Belichick's over at UNC, and you go see Sean McVay. He's a current big-time coach in the NFL. He said he's going to college because he wants to raise his beautiful family in Raleigh. Who are you going to play for? This old guy that can't have a 4-minute press conference, or this guy that's personal, that's got a fade haircut, that got his beard trimmed? Like, I don't know the answer to this, right? So if you ask me, the pitfalls are, it might not work. He might not translate with recruits. His schemes may be old.
It might not work. It might not work. But
that's
it. With the way the landscape is changing, you can't get left behind. And Carolina was in the middle of getting left behind. The entire ACC was in the middle of getting left behind too. I mean, you have to think that if you're the commissioner of the ACC, you love this move, because rather than going out and having to work through a lawsuit with Clemson and Florida State who still want to leave, you've got Bill freaking Belichick coming into Chapel Hill and creating an NFL system that could potentially bring in a ton of money for the conference. And in a place like Chapel Hill, all you have to do is win 9-10 games. You don't have to. It's not Ohio State. We're not Alabama. We're not USC. We don't have to go undefeated every year. And now you don't even have to go undefeated to make the playoff. Okay. And I think that in the future, I do think you're going to see a lot of Sean McVay's dump the NFL and come to college. But I think that this is kind of, we're the guinea pigs for the whole concept, and I'm on board with it.
Okay, for me, Jim Harbaugh, Michigan, positioned really well. They saw what Jim Harbaugh did at Stanford. You saw what he did at Michigan. They've already. I think they're the first program to do this, right? To take a professional coach and make him a college coach. Jim Harbaugh is a pro coach, right? I think
for sure.
I think Stanford bringing in the quarterback,
Andrew Luck,
to be their general manager. I think they were the start of this. Now, Bubba, I think this is great. He took over the headlines. He's got an opportunity. But for me, if I am Alabama, I'm going to John Harbaugh and say, yo, listen, come down here. Here's the money.
Yeah.
Okay? You've got the platform to recruit whoever you want, right? And if I'm at North Carolina, it's going to come down to how much money the alumni want to spend. And if you can spend the money, you can bring in the players, you've got the right coach, you can make this thing happen. This has been another episode of Blue Blood TV. Thanks for joining Will and I. Will, thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely enjoyed it, man.
You know, this was an emergency session. We had to do it, Will. We couldn't let, this remarkable, groundbreaking decision go on untalked about. Bubba, congratulations on your pick. But next week, we'll be back to talk more college basketball. And remember to follow us on social media, leave your comments and prediction, and share this podcast with fellow basketball fans. Until next time, this is the Blue Blood Rivalry TV show signing off. And we are, what are we, Will?
We out.
We out. The Blue Blood TV podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, guys, these shows grow when you share them. So we have a great show here. Share them with all your friends. Make them aware of the Blue Blood TV podcast.
Vaughn.